Welcome back, everyone. We have Matt Harvey from Pounder, Exhumed, Gruesome, Repulsion, Left to Die. Your career is crazy. How you doing today?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Thank you for rescheduling with me. That was awesome. I appreciate it.
Anytime. I'm glad you came on, dude.
Hell yeah.
Well, let's get into this. You guys are about to release your third release with this band. Was the writing and recording process different since the debut?
Um, Not terribly different. The thing with Pounder has always been that we've never really had a drummer, like a full-time drummer. So it's always sort of been me and the other guys kind of just bouncing MP3s and tablature files back and forth. Our bass player Alejandro, he's in Los Angeles. Our guitar player Tom, he's in San Francisco area ish, and I'm kind of halfway between them. So it's very much kind of a hey, what do you think about this? Cool, I have some ideas too. And then we just send it back and forth. And I kind of I'm usually the instigator slash final editor. And then we kind of arrive at the songs and we demo them. And then in this case for this record, we wanted to have a little bit more like technical kind of drum performance. So we tapped our buddy Mike Heller, who I've known forever, and he did a great job on the drums. And yeah, that's kind of our process as much as it's a thing.
And with you talking about Mike coming in and doing crazier drums, I know you guys perform live here and there. Do you see him being the one that plays the drums for you guys?
I mean, I would love for that to be the case. I mean, he is in Los Angeles, so that was part of the decision making with that too. It's kind of a crapshoot with this band because when we started, we were playing live a fair amount, and then life sort of happened, and everybody's other projects and careers, and then the pandemic happened, and since then, we haven't really prioritized playing live. And I think maybe once this record comes out, hopefully there's some interest and that might spur things on or whatever. And that's kind of one of the reasons why this record has been sitting really for a really long time. I think we finished working on it like last summer.
Dang.
In terms of just the music. So it's really just kind of as we've all been doing other stuff, it's kind of just been on the back burner simmering. And I'm excited to finally have it see the light of day, not just because obviously I'm proud of the songs and I think that they're good and stuff, but it's also just that nagging kind of OCD, like there's this thing that's 95% done. We just got to push it over to get it into the you can check it off the box kind of thing.
And with this record, you're talking about how you guys sat on it for a little bit. Were any of these songs like off of Breaking the World or your debut record? That didn't make it on there.
Some of the riffs had been around for a while. I'm a big believer in, if I have an idea, I usually just transcribe it, and then sometimes I'll just have one part that sits there for like 5 years. I'm like, I got a great chorus. I got no verse, no nothing else. So some of the riffs are kind of quite old. Like Get Pounded, I think, was done at the same time as the second album, but we just kind of felt that we didn't need another kind of like mid-tempo song on there. So we sort of, picked and chose that way. I think that one is the oldest. But yeah, I mean, it's really since the beginning of this band, we've always sort of had stuff that sat around for a long time. I mean, on the first album, I had written a lot of stuff without even knowing that Pounder would become a thing. I would just write it for fun. I was like, this would be a cool metal song. And then, a couple years go by, and once Alejandro and I met Tom, we started working on things. So yeah, it's always been kind of there's always inventory, I guess.
And this is like one of your different projects is Gruesome and Left to Die, because Left to Die is a death cover band,
Right.
with members of Death. For this, like, did you always have an idea that you wanted to do this type of metal compared to Gruesome? And
Yeah, no, definitely. This before we started playing together, it had been an idea for, I mean, maybe not quite a decade, but for a long time, just had been something that I had wanted to do. And like I said, and I'd written a couple of the songs on the demo I just written for fun on like a weekend, fucking 10 years ago. And the idea that sort of always kept me from pursuing it was always like, well, I need to find like a really sick vocalist, and that never happened. So I just ended up singing and doing my thing. So
And with that, like, for you, how did you find your voice for this band compared to your other bands?
Um, what's tough, kind of coming into doing something so completely different when you're kind of established in doing something else already, and not just that people in metal know of you doing it, but also you're used to doing it. And so, not having started singing on pitch a long time ago was kind of a big disadvantage. And especially after screaming for so long, you realize like, oh, it really like damaged like the instrument, like all this is sort of your instrument as a vocalist. And you go to sort of do it and you're like, oh, why doesn't this work? And it's like, oh, because I've been screaming for whatever years. So it was definitely a big learning curve. And then the other thing that I think I had working against me is, being able to sort of write and imagine melodies. And for especially on the first album, I was writing melodies for like, Bruce Dickinson, and I can't sing that high. And I think with each subsequent thing we've done, I've been getting better at writing within a range where I can execute stuff well, and think about doing it live, because sometimes you can like get it once in the studio and then you go to like sing and play it and you're like, well, that note is out beyond my reach. So yeah, it was a big and challenging learning process.
And with you talking about pitches, how did you learn to do pitches compared to your other writing?
I guess, a long time ago, I had I'd taken like some rudimentary like music classes. Like, I mean, this is in the 90s. And, later on, I sort of developed more like theoretical grounding. And you just sort of start by, in terms of like training, you just start by like singing intervals and singing scales. And then obviously you're just in the car, like playing like Hellbent for Leather and like just along. That was kind of the main thing, but also just being like bum bum, like, oh, that's a minor third, whatever, and trying to see where you can go and sort of see how far you can.
And do you feel that doing this now compared to your debut record, your range has grown a little more?
I don't know. Honestly, I think the range is about the same, but I think I've gotten smarter at working within the range.
Yeah.
Because of my age and because of the physical condition of my larynx, I don't think expanding the range, unfortunately, it's not a thing. It's just like if you want to start becoming like a bodybuilder at 60, like you just won't be as strong as a guy that's 26. It's just
Right.
impossible.
And with going into lyrics, I'm assuming you write the lyrics for this band. How
I
personal do you get? Do you get personal at all?
Some of them are pretty personal, and I think one of the things that I've found kind of bewildering as we've done these records with Pounder and looking at the critical response, we write a song, we've written a lot of songs, and we continue to write songs about like chicks and relationships and getting laid and stuff like that. And like there's this weird pushback that like, no, you should be writing about like dragons and warriors and like castles. And I was like, I don't know, man, like I've never fought a dragon, but like I've gotten dumped. So it's a weird, it's been an interesting thing for me, I guess, coming from like being involved in the death metal scene and being a fan of traditional metal, but not necessarily being involved in the scene, and sort of seeing people turn their nose up at songs that we've done about rocking or about getting laid or whatever, which is something I have a lot more experience with than dragons, swords, axes, mystical gems or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, so it's a mix of personal stuff and some fantasy stuff, and a lot of songs just about like metal and how much I love metal, and like Metal Eternal on this one is like just about metal and about like how into metal I am and how cool it is to be into metal and how cool it is that the person listening to the song is also into metal, and that like it's something really personal and really universal, and like it's a cool way to connect. So maybe that sounds corny or whatever, but I mean it's honest, And but it's not, I don't want to get like, I want it to be fun for the listener,
Yeah.
and I want it to be energized. I don't want to be like, oh, my mom's dying from cancer. Let's write a
Yeah.
song. Okay, let's not. That's not what this band is for.
Yeah.
That has a place in metal, and if people want to write about it, that's totally cool. But that's not our vibe. It's more of a rock celebratory thing.
And you have some interesting album covers, as you can see, I have them in the background.
Right.
How do you guys go about, making the album cover? And same with naming the record. How does that process go?
Well, we've used the same artist for all three albums. It's a guy named Mark Schoenbach. He's an awesome artist, obviously. He's very keyed into this sort of like retro. He does a lot of like horror and like film and like retro ad parodies and stuff. So it's a really good fit for us because obviously it's old school metal. And it just depends, like usually the song sort of suggests the album cover, and with Breaking the World, honestly, the second album title, that was something I had before the band was even a band. I was like, that's just a kick-ass like metal title.
Yeah,
And like Thunder Forge, it's just like a lot of our songs it's kind of a double entendre. It's like a forge is where your steel gets hard, and there's also this hot chick on the cover, and your steel gets hard, and it's a thing. So we thought it was both like powerful and metal sounding, and also sort of cheeky, which is kind of our lane. And I think when I was talking to Mark about the cover concept, I was like, I'm looking for something that's like a cross between like a D&D module cover and like an 80s hustler. I'm like, if you can do that, then you're gonna make all of my like 11-year-old dreams come true at once. And I think he succeeded.
D&D fantasy stuff. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. So, like we talked about earlier, you've been in many other bands. What gear-wise do you bring to this band that you don't with your other bands? Like, do you change gear-wise?
Oh, gear wise, not. I have such a basic gear setup that it's really pretty much the same. And I think really it's more that even when I'm playing death metal, I have a really like traditional metal like rig setup. I was just down at the Seymour Duncan offices the other day. A buddy of mine called me in. They're developing some new stuff. They're like, we just need somebody to come in and play some riffs and tell me what you think about these pickups or whatever. And it's always a good excuse just to go down and check it out and hang out. And they buy you lunch and shit, so why not? And I brought my pedal board because I was like, well, this way I'll have my setup. And I pulled it out, and he's like, that's your pedal board? Like, that's it? I was like, yeah. It's just basically I have a noise suppressor, my wireless, which also has a tuner, so I don't have a tuner. And then my boost pedal, which is designed by a guy named Michael Klein in Kansas City. And it's very much a descendant. It's in the Tube Screamer sort of tradition. It's I think the EQ range is a little bit wider, and it might have a little bit more oomph, but it's basically just like a cooler Tube Screamer. And then in the effects loop, I just have, again, by Michael Klein's a pedal called a Lonely Ghost, and it's got delay, boost, reverb.
Dang.
And that's it. So the leads have delay, boost, and reverb, and everything else just has a noise suppressor and a boost pedal. And especially like playing with Gruesome, the Exhumed guys, they're used to it, and our other guitar player, Sebastian, he's very much of the same mind, keep it as like rock as possible. But the drummer Gus, who plays with me in Gruesome and Left to Die, he's always like, we'll be sound checking, and he's like, that's it? That's your tone? I'm like, that's it. He's like, but there's like no distortion on it. I was like, there's tons of distortion, but there's not like, current, angle Powerball gain on 8 fucking super saturated. Like, no, it sounds like an old 800 type rig or whatever. And that way you can actually hear the fucking notes, especially when you're tuned to B and you're playing like blast beat riffs at 240 BPM. You can actually hear the riff, and it also keeps you really honest. It's like, if you're playing well, then it sounds great, and if you're fucking up, then you're like, oh shit, I'm fucking up, I better
They sound very bummed out about your rig, not gonna lie.
They're just always like, really? That's the whole thing? I'm like, that's it. It's just a simple and stripped down as possible, and the fewest breakable parts that there are, I just think it's kind of like, if you can't sound good through like a simple rig, then you are not a good guitar player. If you need 47 boutique things and like channels and a whole refrigerator full of rack effects, then either you're playing something that's not metal, and that's cool, like whatever, or you're a shitty guitar player. Not that I'm great, but I'm not shitty.
Oh my god, that's funny. And with this band Pounder, if you could do a dream tour lineup, what would your dream tour lineup be with Pounder?
I mean, I would love for us to play, in terms of just like the sky's the limit. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'd love for us to play with, like, Priest. I think would be the ultimate band. I would say Maiden too, but I think Maiden fans are so up their own asses and up Iron Maiden's ass. Like, I love Maiden. They're one of my favorite bands, but going to their shows, like 60% of the people are like really aggravating. And I don't think that they care about the opening band.
We don't.
They're just like, whatever. So I feel like if you played with Priest, though, it's like people that love rock and metal, and they would be like, hey, whatever, I'm here early having a beer, I might as well check these guys out. That could be really cool. And plus you'd get to, see Judas Priest like 30 times, which would be never a bad thing.
And if you did do a tour like that, including this record, if you could make a dream set list, what would your set list be?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think the issue that I've always had with this band, in terms of execution, is that some of the songs that are the most fun to play on guitar are the most difficult to sing and play. And so when we've done the set list, it always kind of comes down to what are the songs that we can execute the best. That said, I would like to do a lot of the songs, from the new record, because we haven't got a chance to play those yet, and I think that would be that'd be really cool, because there's a lot of tunes on there that I think are really strong and would really go over live. I guess like Metal Eternal, Line of Fire, Get Pounded, all of those. Actually, Coming Loose, I think, is one of my favorite songs on the new record. So I think all of those, and I don't know. I don't really whatever I guess is going to get the biggest shout, though, is really what it comes down to, because when you're playing the show, it's less about what you want to hear and more about what the audience wants. I mean, obviously within your catalog, they're here because they like your band, but sometimes the song that the audience thinks is great, you're always like, really? I thought that was like a throwaway song, but okay, cool. I mean, not throwaway, but you just like, oh, I thought that one was just okay or whatever.
And have you guys rehearsed any of these songs together yet?
Not since God, early last year, I guess, when we were like sitting there and like working through the riffs and stuff. Again, it's just has been a case where the occasion has not presented itself, and just the logistics of kind of getting everyone in one place and then figuring out the drummer situation and everything else. It's so labor intensive that it's not, unless it's one of those things that it sounds really fun, like, hey, let's get together and run through the songs, but it's like, okay, so who's going to go where, and then where are you going to stay, and then who's going to play drums, and then how long is this going to take? And you really have to kind of, it needs to be incentivized, like, hey, we have this opportunity that we need to do, kind of thing. So but we have talked about doing some kind of release-ish show later this year, so hopefully that will light a fire under our asses.
Well, you said you guys like rehearsed last year. With any of the songs, did you guys feel any type of energy together with any of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've always had good chemistry in the band, I think. So every time we get together and play, you can kind of, feel the vibe developing or whatever. I think in order to make a project worth pursuing or whatever, there has to be that kind of that chemistry, So I definitely think it's there. It's just would be a case of rekindling it and getting that momentum going, and hopefully as we start talking about this record more and people, start hearing about it more, I think that will, like I said, hopefully light the fire under our asses a little bit.
I hope so. And with writing this record, do you have any favorite moments that you have?
Again, it's one of those things that feels like it's been so long that the songs have been sitting there. That going back now feels kind of weird, because usually, it's something that's a little fresher for you. I really liked doing the Deeper Than Blood track, because I'm a sucker for a ballad, and it was a little bit more melodic, I think, than anything that we've done before, like almost getting into, quasi Queenish sort of territory. And again, I think like Metal Eternal was like one of my favorite tracks, because I think when we've done slower stuff in the past, I don't know that it hasn't worked as well as this track. And I think because my default mode of playing, coming from, death and thrash metal or whatever, it's like fast, 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 fast. And so sometimes, when I'm trying to write a song that's a little bit slower, I always worry like, oh, is this too slow? Is this too boring or whatever? And I think we kind of found that, it's almost like Sabbath adjacent kind of pocket on that, like Dio era Sabbath or whatever, that I think maybe I would have been uncomfortable attempting on the first couple records. So I think that one is a real strong track. And then, it ramps up at the end and is pretty rocking as well, and has a little riffathon, which is kind of our thing.
Talking ballads and stuff like that, when going into, like, writing a record like this, is there any bands, like, you listen to that kinda gear you up for writing, or is it all just you?
It's really like it's a cumulative thing. I think, I mean, having listened to this style of music for so long, it kind of ebbs and flows, where I'll go through a period of time where I don't really listen to a lot of traditional metal, and then I'll listen to it kind of all the time for a few months. But I mean, the favorites have always, stayed largely the same. It's, obviously Priest, Maiden, Manowar, Diamond Head, Tank, Tigers of Pantang, Satan, Tokyo Blade, with a little bit of like the old Swedish stuff, like the Heavy Load and Virtue and Gotham City, and then the American stuff like Sabotage and Riot and Omen, and all that kind of stuff. It's just a kind of an amalgam of somewhere between late 70s to kind of mid 80s. And we've also, kind of try to let in a little bit more influence from, not just those, traditional metal bands, but also like, we all love like Dokken and Skid Row. And not just that too, but like, Slade or T-Rex or David Bowie even, Alice Cooper. So there's like, it's basically traditional metal, but I think there's a little bit of flavor on both sides, where maybe some of it's a little heavier because, I'm from a death metal grindcore background, but then some of it maybe is a little bit sleazier, because I think we're not so married to, like I said, just singing about fucking wizards and shit.
And I gotta ask you, you're naming all these bands. For you as a vocalist slash guitar player, what 5 records shaped you as an artist?
I mean, I guess, the number one for me was definitely like Master of Puppets. That was the one that kind of like, I was 11 and, I'd heard some records and stuff, and, Twisted Sister, Quiet Riot and Ozzy and whatever. And, I really liked like Dio and Maiden. But I still thought I was going to be like a comic book artist when I grew up. Like that was like my career path. And then I heard Master of Puppets and I was like, whoop, nope. All right, I gotta figure this out. That was the real sort of like turning point. I think there's that one. There's like when I first heard, obviously I'm still a death metal guy. Talking about a traditional metal band, but still a death metal guy. When I heard like Scream Bloody Gore by Death, and then the Peel Sessions by Napalm Death, that kind of opened my eyes to like how extreme metal could be and how far you could take it. And then when I was sort of coming back and getting back into, in the 90s when death metal was kind of petering out, then I sort of went back, and, one of the big records was Stained Class by Judas Priest. Like I found it used for like $1 on cassette or whatever. And I was like, all right, cool. I never really, I heard like Turbo first. So I didn't pay that much attention to Priest. I was a Maiden guy. And then I heard that and I was like, holy shit. And, that became, sort of the gateway to like getting back into just like heavy metal, and I guess that's only 4, but I mean, those are sort of the 4 that I would really think of in terms of, metal. I mean, beyond that might be like, the Star Wars soundtrack from when I was a little kid.
Oh yeah, that's a good one though too.
That I used to listen to that all the fucking time. And, I'm really into soundtracks and symphonic music or whatever as well. So that would be way up there, if I had to slot in a number 5.
I feel you on that. I agree with you. And you've accomplished a lot already as a musician. What's left on your bucket list?
I really would like to see, I mean, I feel like there's a lot left. Like, I don't feel like, there's that many laurels to rest on. I would like to see, whether it's Pounder or some other thing, something that's more like rock metal orientated that I do kind of get elevated and respected to like the level of, not like, Priest or Maiden, but even like something proportional to like where Exhumed is in the death metal scene, where it's a known and respected band that people care about or know about. I would love to see, I would love that for Pounder, or, something in a more like rock metal vein. And but the main thing that I guess that I've really been working on the last 4 or 5 years is I have been writing a lot of like film score oriented music. And that's kind of, I guess, where I would like to sort of pivot towards like film and video game work, because I'm getting older and I don't ever want to stop playing metal and stop playing shows, but at the same time I would love to not be in a van like 150 days a year. I'd love to be able to cut that down to 75 days out of the year,
Yes,
just
makes sense.
for my neck and my back and my overall sort of health.
Mhm.
Uh, and I mean, I would love to make more money. But
Yeah.
let's be honest.
I think everyone wants to do that last one. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and for someone listening, like your whole catalog, you yourself, for someone listening to you for the first time, what 5 songs would you suggest them to listen to?
I mean, these are the kinds of things I never really think about. I mean, I guess it just depends, because I mean, I feel like, if you're into like more traditional metal, then I would start with like Pounder, and like I did a thrash band with a couple guys from Death Angel called Scarecrow. Then that might be something more to your palate. Or if you're like a death metal guy, or a more of like a hardcore punk guy, I would suggest 5 other songs. So again, I mean, it's like one of those things. I don't mean to like. I'm not trying to be evasive, but I guess for me, it's like once the music is finished or whatever, it's really not up to me. It's just like, well, it's just out there. And if this is, if you find anything that you like in what I've done, I think it's great. And if you're like, well, I like this sort of side of it, but I don't care for this stuff that you've done, and then that's, that makes sense, because usually I find that I will meet people in the scene or whatever, and I'm like, oh yeah, I love that too. And then I'll meet somebody else totally different. They're like, oh yeah, I love that too. And I don't really meet that many people that are like, I love Cryptic Slaughter and Sore Throat, and I also love, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and not just that, but I also like Dokken, and I also like these really obscure, whatever band that only had 1 7-inch like Chateau or something. And then they also love death metal, and then they also love regular rock, and they also love, like I love, a lot of just like straight up like pop music, and I love a lot of old school R&B. So I'm kind of all over the place. And I think that, my discography is not as all over the place as my personal tastes, but it's wide ranging enough to where I think 3 different people in the metal scene would pick 5 completely different songs,
I
and
agree.
maybe you'd be like, oh, well, that guy likes this because I don't know, man, he's just into whatever that weird shit is. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. And where can everyone keep up with Pounder and buy this new fantastic record?
The best way to keep up with us, obviously we're on Facebook and Instagram. I think I think we've aged out of like TikTok and stuff. We're at the age where it's not appropriate to be on there. And it's usually at Pounder Heavy Metal. We're on Bandcamp. Shadow Kingdom Records, our label, always does a great job of promoting the record. And in fact, today that's what I was doing before this interview, is I'm updating our web store so that we're going to have the new record available for pre-order, because it's landing next month. And we're also doing a big sale on the existing stock of the older records to sort of celebrate the new record coming out, and also just, get this shit out of my warehouse, which is a win. You get a record at a good price, and I have more space on the shelf, and, so that's kind of the immediate thing. Yeah, so it's at Pounder Heavy Metal, Instagram, Facebook, Bandcamp, and yeah, we're not super active on there, but obviously we're going to be getting more active, gearing up for the record.
Hell yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And like I said, I appreciate you rescheduling, and it was awesome to talk about the record, and great meeting you.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm going to end the interview